People Officer, Gilma leads Altair's global human resources organization, including workforce strategy, talent acquisition and development, and employee engagement. She joined Altair from Aptiv, where she served as Vice President, Global Corporate Human Resources and Talent. Previously, she held various senior roles at US Steel and Deloitte's Human Capital Consulting Group. Gilma has more than 2 decades of experience in leading large-scale global teams in organizational effectiveness, talent acquisition and development, and HR transformation at major companies. She earned a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from University of Texas at Austin, and also holds various certifications in talent, leadership development, diversity, and inclusion. Gilma, welcome, and please go ahead and share your screen. And also a reminder to the audience, don't forget to enter your questions with the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen.
Thank you, Chris. And it's, again, I just want to confirm that everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Wonderful. And thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be speaking this afternoon. And thank you to the CIE DFW chapter for such a great panel discussion on such an important topic that we're just not facing now, but will certainly help inform human capital practice and leadership traits for the future. So I'd like to start by saying, this is really close to home for me. As you mentioned in my introductions, I was raised in Texas and went to the University of Texas. But then also, from my background, I come from a non-traditional HR background. So in early stage, I was more of a technologist. When I joined Anderson Consulting, now as at Accenture, I actually started as a programmer, moved into various, realms, just in consulting, ended up in human capital with Deloitte, went into manufacturing, and now I'm at back in technology. One of the big things from this traditional path, and I think this is something that we can all look to connect on, is sometimes non-traditional backgrounds and diversities really help, shape your values, our values, and the journey we take. So I'll start my presentation by talking a little bit about the timing of when I joined Altair. So I had the pleasure of joining Altair as the first Chief People Officer, February 24th, 2020. This is 2 weeks before, I would say, lockdown really occurred here in the United States. We were starting to hear and get, some alerts, certainly, in the APAC region, the cases was severe. In EMEA, we were starting to just, feel, and Spain and France were starting to go on lockdown. So the timing to me, was a very tough, one of the first decisions I had to make in collaboration with, my CEO and our leadership team was, how do we keep safety? How do we keep our employees' safety, but most importantly, continue to, drive the business forward? So timing may not have been perfect, but one of the things that was great and, that I'm really proud about is the values that really shined in Altair. So from a response to COVID, I'm going to share some of the elements, right, that we really embraced just in our response globally. So, safety first, the safety of our employees, families, and our communities certainly was at the forefront. Second was a global mindset. Later in the presentation, you'll hear sort of our large global footprint, but embracing all of our cultures, our backgrounds, but most importantly, making a connection, with each individual and what was important and what was top of mind for them is something truly that we had to activate, as colleagues, as leaders, and most importantly, as global citizens. But the most important element really goes back to how we lived our values. And, our values in any company are really the behaviors, the norms, and what really bonds, on how we communicate, how we collaborate, but most importantly, how we face adversity and challenges. Shows the organization's ability, agility, and really, there are opportunities to shine. So today you'll get an idea. I will also share lessons learned, right? Some of the tough moments that we faced. But most importantly, what I really want each of you to take away, if you're a student, if you are an individual contributor, if you're a manager or a leader, is really to help inspire on how a strong company vision, a culture with great values can really propel you forward. So let me start by talking a little bit about Altair. Our vision is pretty simple. So to transform enterprise decision-making by leveraging of simulation, high-power computing, and artificial intelligence. So let me first start by sharing a video.
The conventional wisdom says that to achieve something new, we must work within established boundaries, parameters, silos. That the size of an idea is determined by how much it pushes its limits. So what happens when there are no boundaries? What happens when the barriers separating creativity from analysis are removed? When we can refine ideas as quickly as we dream them. When insights emerge from an ever-growing sea of detail. What happens when we're no longer constrained by the limits of the physical world? We are Altair, and these are the questions that drive us. To bring together the most powerful forces in technology, across every domain of humanity, throughout every mode of industry, we enable innovative minds to advance infinitely, to change tomorrow together, to find out where innovation will take us, when instead of testing the limits, we remove them.
Let me pick off. That's a great introduction, and you'll hear sort of the themes throughout my presentation about no limits. But just at a high level, let me tell you a little bit more about Altair. We are based in Detroit, Troy, Michigan. It was founded in 1985. From a human capital perspective, we're a global company, and 3,000 engineers, scientists, and creative thinkers globally. Our footprint is across all regions, 25 countries. We have 86 offices. Our Altair and partner software products is a portfolio of over 150 technologies. From a broad solution perspective, and stated in our vision, we are in data analytics. Physics simulation is really where we truly started, business. Design modeling and visualization as well. IoT, high performance cloud computing, and again, we have an array of partners, alliances. From a customer base, some of you that are participating on today's call, you may be our customers. So 11,000 plus worldwide customers across all industries, verticals, globally. So, anywhere from automotive to technology companies, to industrial, to civil, to financial services. Why Altair? Best in class data analytics and stream data visualization is very key. again, simulation is very core to our, but most importantly, we're optimizing technology through either high power computing, and also most importantly, one of our unique offerings on why Altair is really our unique licensing model and partner alliances that we have. But really what, helps us thrive forward, and this is really where our presentation really focuses, is on our culture. So our culture has 4 values. One is envision the future. And envision the future, I think it's probably helpful if I give some, understanding of background, just on, what these core values are, and how, we live them, how when, we onboard, any candidate, right, we try to make sure that there will be a culture fit, but most importantly, that when, we live our norms and we collaborate, these we're doing effectively. So envisioning the future really focuses on long-term vision. So this, again, from the video, there is no limit, right? We push the technology boundaries. And I think that has really helped propel us, forward. And you'll hear some of our wins even during the COVID stages. From communicating honestly and broadly, this is really creating an inclusive environment where we really encourage data sharing with speed. So when we communicate flat. Our CEO, all the way at the bottom, can send emails, some of the practices that we have, I'll share, and most importantly, how we dialed them up during COVID. We seek technology first, right? We identify and deliver leading edge products, but most importantly, we focus on bringing these solutions to our customers. So thinking about, technology business first, with a customer mindset. And most, last is we embrace diversity and take risk. One, as you can see, from our makeup, global, very diverse. And that's one of the components, right, that really helps us, win. So not only is the makeup from a team perspective, but also we respect the diverse perspectives. We have an open and respectful dialogue where everyone can, challenge the status quo. But most importantly, we embrace risk taking. So one of the things, when I came on, quite different from other, companies and experiences, risk taking was really one of the key ingredients that I think makes us, a great company. So it's okay to take some bold, innovative moves and fail. But most importantly is, what did you learn and how did we learn from a team and how do we move forward? So with that said, let me just briefly go through each of them and talk about, how we lived them, from, during the epidemic. So envisioning the future, a couple of components that did take place, right? We had outstanding product releases that happened despite the epidemic. We also, from a merger and acquisition, we acquired 7 companies during 2020, which was very, very impressive, right? But also, very challenging. So what really propelled us forward was, when we think about envisioning the future, as I mentioned, is there's no boundaries, right? We think of, with no limits. And we really had to give individuals, right, who were trying to, calibrate, the new norm of being remote, with still having that ability to envision the future, right? Having a purpose to the work, really being tied to the vision, but most importantly, being inspired at all levels. So one of the biggest challenges that we faced was the lack of face-to-face, right? And I think all of us that are on the line and that will be hearing this recording, most of us are still working remotely, maybe working remotely. So that came with challenges of, making personal connections, brainstorming, but most importantly, being able to travel and see colleagues, see customers, etc. So this is really where, as a leader and, and I'll coach on some of the elements that, we dialed up as levers. we really put an emphasis on having a cadence for innovation and problem solving sessions. Whereas before it might not have been, as I would say, a cadence or a schedule perspective, we really tried at all levels, right? If you want to have a meeting, like, let's get it on the calendar, let's schedule it, let's problem solve together, which was very different, but it was the new norm that we had to really, embrace in order to keep that innovation, that problem solving going. The other component that we did more is that we mobilized global town halls. So our CEO started a series of podcasts where he would talk about just various topics, just top of mind, but also, broke some, the ice on some of the elements of what he was reading, what some of his favorite dishes were. So he brought a personal side. And we used the other channel of global town halls really to present forward and inspire in stories of either celebrating story success, giving technology overviews. So we would have key leaders talk about, future releases, talk about the market, talk about some of those wins. So those were from how do you continue to envision the future, the cadence of meetings, but most importantly, having that connection from a global town hall cadence event really worked well for us. Fueling the growth, like I mentioned, we really did take some bold moves during this time. Certainly, being remote, trying to integrate, some of these leaders really did face a challenge, just in making, them understand our culture, making them, feel like part, of the organization. Tough times, right? Some of them wanted to, to have more of that personal touch. Unfortunately, with the travel restrictions, et cetera, we did the best we could. But one of the things, in the long run is we made some bold moves in growing our portfolio to help inspire even our employees that, yes, we are growing, and yes, there is a future, and there's a purpose, of my work. Leader training was another element that we did during this time. So as I mentioned, we really pressed on having a cadence for problem solving and innovation. In one of the things that we really taught leaders to do was to listen and observe more, right? So as opposed to leading the dialogue, just listening and observing. And I think this really hit home because we are a global company, English may be a second language. And in times, right, just because of cultural difference, different levels, some employees and some even managers may not have been as comfortable engaging, virtually over, the new media. And we really tried to push forward for leaders to listen, to observe, and to really make sure that every voice mattered and that every voice, collectively spoke. So that's from an Envision the Future, some examples. For communicate honestly and broadly, I think, just like, most companies, making sure that our employees, felt safe, that we're working, one, for the safety of the families and our communities, that we were supported, and most importantly, that we were following regulatory and we were doing the right thing. Personal hurdles to overcome was, a challenge that we had to really get used to, right? And I think this is going to really be important even forward as some companies decide not to, reopen fully, or maybe face-to-face interactions may not as happen as current as they used to before. So from a personal hurdle overcome, right? And this is, I think, a skill that we should all, try to dial up, now and more than ever, is just making those personal connections, right? It's not just, what are you working on? This is what I'm working on, going straight into the agenda and talking, but most importantly, trying to understand, both the personal aspect and really what what motivates, right, your colleagues and your employees. Making that personal connection, right, can really bring that trust, that innovation, but most importantly, from a retention perspective, can keep the team together. So more and more getting comfortable. So if you're not comfortable, work is work, and I don't really share that much, personal aspect. I think COVID taught us, right, that in order to remove the boundaries of working virtually or not being face to face as much, you have to go there with colleagues at work. Communication, one of the things was just having a global mindset, right? So when we communicated, it really had, we had to look at it from all the different regions, right? I think every different country and region was going through a different stage within the COVID pandemic. So really respecting, the employer's choice, right? Rather than, saying, no, these are the corporate guidelines, became very important. We broke down country by country guidelines that we provided to our managers. So being a global company, some of our managers that are based in the US are managing resources in APAC or EMEA and vice versa. So keeping them informed of what the new norms are during COVID, what we're allowed, what we're not allowed, either from a regulatory perspective or really just because, the feeling of that particular country and sentiments was really more emotion. So I think learning just to be in tune as a global leader and informed of what's happening, not just a region perspective, but where your team is, and really tailoring their choices became more important. Flexible work schedule was something that we have embraced for a long time, and that really, I think, made a big difference for us, as well as family wellness. We started looking at, elements of, it's not just about you, but more from a family wellness perspective. We are very fortunate to have a medical team, and I'll here, for example, in the US, that really does, serve, our employees. So online telemedics, in our Troy location, we provided vaccines, but then we also did other elements that before I think were only tailored to an employee audience, we opened it to families. So this was just different kids events. We hosted a lot of kids events during what would have been lunch hour here in the US, dinner time in EMEA, which was, from touring a farm to reading a book to coloring contest, but then also from the families. We did yoga, we did meditation, we did, different guidelines of how you can structure, your office space. And then also,
excuse me, Gilma, just a quick time check, maybe about a minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, we did, COVID updates. And I think those were really, really, compelling because it really embraced, the families. From embracing our culture, seek technology first. Like I said, we continue to work from a digital space, with our customers. So the non-traditional way of how we did conferences, how we did really change the story from a social media, how we were storytellers, and how we engaged with our customers. But embracing diversity and risk-taking really did take a turn. More and more, we wanted to make sure that everyone felt connected, and that risk-taking, during this virtual time, one, we weren't going to be perfect, but we did make some bold moves in adopting, a virtual intern program, unlimited vacation, and really unifying, our fronts on how we recruited and move forward with employee resource groups. So with that said, I hope today's, presentation really helped, help you understand, some of the elements and levers that we did, from looking into that, from the values lens. So again, I'll leave you with people first, A couple of things that you as a leader or just a student, individual contributor can look to embrace. Protect the culture, right? Because that fuels R&D, knowledge transfer, and risk taking. From retaining talent, like I listen in empathy and making those personal connections, and continue to think as a global leader. So with that said, just shared some of the values at Altair, and I thank the chapter for having me present today.